Yeah.
So then Chris, you just have to sit here and pontificate.
I want to be here for the pontification, but I want to be like right next to him. I want like a front row seat instead of just a front row.
Oh,
I want the
so this was a VIP ticket?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I want raffle. I want the raffle.
Yeah. So can we wait?
Yeah, just find out the Expo.
Well, it's like reading Spider-Man. Peter Parker is now 40 years old. And Spider-Man is about to be replaced by...
Where did they start seeing?
So was that my great first So... Smart Alec.
That's why I get paid the big bucks. All right, they're not big bucks. We're working on the big buck side. It's a little bucks. All right, can I ask the first question?
California
Well, sir.
Yeah, Jesse's got one.
That's all right. I came over on Mary, so screw you. Hello, Neil.
So, I had a really funny conversation with my friends after the first Expo. Because we started talking about the stuff we want to see. And ultimately, not close enough to be, but we came to so many of your stories. What we realized really quickly was the best Expo stories were like the least rooted, not the least, but the least part of that sort of like online or taking care of race relations. And instead they're often like, you're everything Allison, I don't know, your feelings of all this sort of stuff, and that's all I wanted to see. I mean, like, how do you even like do the movie version of the X-Men and explain to them that this is the same, these two concepts go together, even though they go together like peanut butter and jelly in the comics and film comics. I don't know what my question is. But you're responsible for some of the most out there and yet so beloved of the X-Men stories. And what do you think accounts for your space faring X-Men?
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. The whole point of X-Men from the very first issue that Dave Cockrum and I started working on was anything goes. Within the first 7 issues, we had, we definitely had the arrival of the Shi'ar Empire. We had aliens running around looking like the dumbest supervillains you've ever seen in your life. Eric the Red was, what can I say? We had Sentinels. We had Sentinels in outer space. Why? Because, hey, the space shuttle was cool, and back then it had the virtue of not having blown up yet. 3 or 4 times, sadly. So we could wreck it ourselves and not feel guilty. Then we could say, well, we've just saved the universe, what do we do next? How about we go to Ireland and meet leprechauns? But leprechauns? Sure, why not? I mean, what else would you expect from a superhero book? I mean, the whole idea is, gosh, we have people who can fly. Do you think that means anything is possible? Yes. We took it seriously.
I forget the name now of the living island.
Krakoa.
Krakoa. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And again, I'm just like, I don't think I'm gonna see this in an X-Men movie, but I wish I could.
I got rid of it as quick as I could. It wasn't even my book, and I got rid of it. Len said, how do we get rid of a living island? And I just said, well, you've got all these characters, 7 lines of geometry. geometric lines of force that are anchoring that bit of Earth to Earth, and we'll just leave it behind as we go orbiting through space. And it worked. Except now they've brought him back, and he's evidently a piece of the school. I cannot imagine how any of those teachers got accredited. I don't even want to think of the, how shall we put it, insurance ramifications involved in this here. The residency requirements, the academic requirements, yes, Professor Wagner. I'm not certified. This is the X-Men. We have ways. So, fortunately, it's not my department anymore. I just find a brilliant artist and let him handle the details.
Well, do you want to open things up to questions? I mean, because it's a retrospective, 40 years. I figured we got a lot of fans here.
Yes, who can remember the very early days? Why, when
I see
had
hesitant hands.
typewriters and communicated with telephones that did not leave the wall, they were stapled to. You could walk out of the house away from your job and no one could get in touch with you. What a concept. Privacy. Ooh, you'll never know what that is, It's like, I'm a terrorist. It takes me 23 hours to get from point A to point B to commit my heinous act, and then I have to wait 5 days for it to appear on the network news. Oh gosh, we will die of old age before anyone finds out we are being terroristic. Now by the time you get to the 6 o'clock news, it's already old news on Fox. This is not quite the 21st century we imagined. Where's Tom Cruise and his, my eye teleports my ad blurb to the wall behind me.
I think he's running Scientology.
And they have legitimate commercials up now.
I have auditioned for them. Well, I usually bail out. I should say I've been sent auditions for them.
When I first started working for Marvel in 1969, some of you may remember, that was the old days. Scientology's main offices were on 59th Street, well, the New York offices were 59th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. And unfortunately, you had to pass by them to get to Stan's apartment. And if you walk by as a Church of Scientology, and these very cute, well, almost J.C. Latter-day Saints types were standing out front. Hi, would you like to learn about Scientology? Have you ever heard of L. Ron Hubbard? Dude, I've read Isaac Asimov. I don't need L. Ron Hubbard. No, Isaac is evil. Hubbard is true. Okay. No, you're looking at us. You want to come in, don't you? You don't believe what they say. You want to be our friend. We want to be your friend. No. You're taking a step towards us. No, I am. Oh, God. Yes, we know him too. So, it was a wild and crazy time in the Big Apple, you see. This is what you young California types were missing. And that's where the X-Men came from.
Well, we got that out of the way. Do we have any questions?
Okay, I'm out of here.
You, sir.
You worked with a lot of artists on your run on X-Men. Did those artists influence your story ideas? A lot of times they say to write to your artist nowadays. Did,
You're an artist, we work together.
Yes, yeah.
What was
So
it
are
like?
you talking, you know, it was,
what was it like? Well,
As he stares at you.
what was really fun working with Chris was, oh, I'm sorry, did you have a follow-up?
no.
Was that Chris writes Marvel style. And if you aren't familiar what Marvel style is, it's the writer will write a plot, a kind of a loose plot, kind of giving the key points of the story, page by several page breakdown, that kind of gives you the overview of the story with the key elements. And then as the artist, I get to flesh that out. So I get to, it becomes quite collaborative in a sense. I get to tell Chris's story my way, and then Chris will see what I have drawn and then dialogue and script it and narrate it as to what I've drawn. So I think over the course of the 12 issues of Nightcrawler that Chris and I got to do, we started to develop an understanding of what Chris, I mean, I've been reading Chris's work since I was 13 years old, so I've been, you already said that you started in 1969, I wasn't born yet, and you already laid that foundation, so, you know, I had to have ended up reading your work after that. So I was 13 years old, 1984, first comic that I bought regularly, Uncanny X-Men. So I've been an X-Men fan and a fan of Chris's work since I was a teenager. So when the Marvel office, the X-Men office contacted me to say, we're doing this new Nightcrawler series, it's written by Chris Claremont, are you interested? I said yes, before they even finished the sentence. I was very excited to get to work with, you know, someone whose work I've enjoyed and have read so much of. So knowing what I have experienced from Chris's writing, I kind of already had a step ahead of the game there, knowing what I have experienced as a fan. So coming at it from the artistic side, I kind of was able to take hold of that, and I think Chris started to understand my artwork style, and I noticed the plot started to kind of gravitate towards accommodating some of my strengths. And I wish we had gotten more than 12 issues because we could have really run with the stories from here on out.
Yeah, I could have stacked even more people around the frame of the book.
If you read Nightcrawler 11, then you know what Chris is talking about there with the aliens.
And if you haven't, you should be ashamed of yourselves.
Get over that shame and then find a dealer booth and pick up a copy.
There you go. What he said. No, I mean the whole point behind the stat. See, can you guys hear me or?
We can hear.
Yeah.
Okay. The whole point behind the Stan Lee style is I'm working with Jack Kirby, otherwise known as King. I'm working with Steve Ditko. I should tell them per panel what's happening. Yes, panel 1, character walks into room. The room looks like this. The character does this and says this, and the other character does that and says that. Panel 2. And by this point, Jack has fallen asleep. Stan's attitude was, I got Jack, I got Steve, I'm the boss, I got a lot of work to do. Mostly involved shutting the door of his office, turning the lock, and as bosses have been known to do from the dawn of time. Which of course turns creation into an interesting concept, because if indeed you look on God as the ultimate boss, and he's sitting in an office with the door locked and he's snoozing, who's doing all the work? Now there's a theory. Oh, never mind. Anyway, Dr. Strange. His point was, I'll give Jack a concept and Jack will draw the book. Jack, big guy comes to New York and kicks the FF's ass. Galactus. Okay. You know, this is cool. In effect, the X-Men were the same kind of way. Dave and I would sit down and try to figure out what do we want them to do. And unfortunately, being like 8 characters, or as of the end of Giant Size #1, 23 characters, it was a little harder because we were trying to choreograph a whole bunch of people. But the beauty of a Dave Cockrum is that he can juggle that cavalcade as easily as, I don't know, you can walk down the street. It was phenomenal. It was extraordinary. It was unbelievable because you just throw something in Dave's direction and he hit it out of the park without even trying. And at the same time give you new character design looks for Scott. I mean, Kurt speaks for himself. Aurora was wonderful. And then suddenly Jean turned from the most boring redhead you've ever seen into Jean. And it was like, wow, we gotta use her. She looks cool. She was wearing hot pants. But the way Dave drew it, you understood why they were called hot pants. And the weird thing is, you look at them from today's perspective and it's like, okay, they're sort of mid-upper thigh shorts. Why? Why are they called hot pants again? Because she's Jean Grey, dude. That's the what an artist can bring to a story. He can take the writer's impulse and give it flesh and give it reality. I couldn't come up with a fraction of the brilliant sight gags that Todd did for the Banffs. And the more he did it, the more I wanted to use them as more than what they seemed. Like, what were they? I don't know, but they're really creepy and they're fun. Let's play with them some more. And it's off and running. That's the kind of thing you know, the synergy of a good team will bring together, because each of you brings your own set of inspirations and expectations and wouldn't this be cool? And then the other person, if they have half a brain, will play with it. And one will inspire the other back and forth. And you end up with not just a single good-looking issue, but a really cool run of the book. And ideally, a run that'll leave readers wanting to see what happens next, which is always, in comics, the fundamental goal of any series.
I think we had a question right there, right? You had your hand raised before? Yeah.
My question pertains to the new rebooted movies. What's your opinion on the new rebooted movies?
The new rebooted universe, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your opinion on the new rebooted universe as far as Marvel's, you know, Marvel movies? The movies? The movies. The movie X-Men universe, I guess. What's your opinion on the movies?
Wait.
Universe?
I mean, they're about to reboot the comic book universe.
Somebody told me movies. Which one is it?
Oh, it's the movies.
The movies. He means the movies.
Oh, you mean the post Days of Future Past movies? Which haven't been made yet.
I guess that answers you.
I think I think this is a question better directed to Bryan Singer. I do know that Fox has greenlit and scheduled a Gambit movie because I wrote it. I wrote the treatment theoretically. Of course, Chris McQuarrie wrote the treatment for the Wolverine, and look what happened to that. So anything's possible. It's Hollywood, as long as, well, I haven't seen the check yet, so I can't say make it a check. It has a cash joke. I think the X-Men universe at this point is up for grabs. Brian and Lauren Shuladana are in the process of redefining it. It looks like Apocalypse will have more X-Men characters in it than all the others put together, it seems, including Days of Future Past, which amazed me, because I didn't think you could fit more in it. I know it will have Jennifer,
Jason Lee.
no,
Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence. I keep thinking Jennifer Garner, and that's not right.
It's electric.
Not again.
Well, she's married to Ben Affleck, she can't go over and do it.
Not that again either.
Anyway, so we've got at least one Oscar winner in it. Michael Fassbinder's in it. Well, Magneto is like a member of the movie team. You can't do a film without a Magneto in it, apparently.
Did you like his portrayal? I mean,
What I just said has nothing to do with the.
oh, I'm just curious.
portrayal.
Oh, no, I wasn't imputed.
Actually, what I wish, the thing that really pissed me off about X-Men First Class is there's Michael Fassbinder walking through South America, meet and greet to all the expatriate Germans he can find. And it's like, the heck with Huntsman, not Huntsman, what's the stupid thing with Ian, with Connor? No, it just came out, the superhero film. Michael Caine and Connell.
The Kingsman?
The Kingsman. Yes, we design clothes for kings. We are the Kingsmen. Also, secret society of supervillain heroes. Sorry. But it's like, I'm sorry, I saw that scene and I wanted to see an hour and a half or 2 hours of Magneto kicking butt. And not just kicking butt as only James Bond could kick butt. Because I'm sorry, he looked like James Sodding Bond. And they were all Nazi butts, so it would have been even better. You could, I mean, it would have been Agent Carter done right. Or slightly more right. I mean, that would have been cool. And then you could bring in the School for Gifted Youngsters. I'm sorry. That was a bad chance. But no, I thought Fassbinder was just like, oh, this is too cool for words. And I'm sorry, when you've got talent like that, and that's just the old young X-Men as opposed to the old X-Men who were equally gifted in their own right as performers. I mean, though I have to say in all honesty, it is sort of a stretch to fantasize. What's his face is young Charlie?
Oh, yeah, no,
James McAvoy evolving into Patrick Stewart. Especially since Days of Future Past is set in it's what, 1972? 73. The beginning of Nixon's second term. And Wolverine, the origin of Wolverine, concludes at 3 Mile Island, which is only like 7 years later. And it's like, whoa, you turn from James McAvoy into Patrick Stewart in 7 years? Dude. What did you do? Go into a mental battle with Obi-Wan? Or worse, what's his face?
Hector Hammond?
No. In, sorry, not Yoda. He wasn't fighting Yoda, he was fighting,
Studio 54.
Nick Fury, for crying out loud!
Purple Man. I'm running out of mind control characters.
No, it was the guy who plays Nick. Oh,
Samuel
Samuel Jackson,
Samuel
who
Jackson.
originally played
Mace Windu.
No.
Mace
Mace
Windu.
who?
Mace
Mace
Windu was
Windu.
I thought I had bad luck with names.
Jack?
I
No,
love
remember
playing
when
this
they're,
guess the
they're
name
dueling?
game.
They're dueling in the balcony overlooking
Mace Windu.
the Senate,
All right.
and
That shit was crazy.
you know, the emperor is melting. And then, young Darth, who isn't Darth yet, but is still Anakin, like, pushes, that was so uncool, man. You know, snakes on a plane, and now I've got like, this idiot Jedi to my left. I mean, that's not fair, man. Well, snakes are betrayers. So yeah, that's a metaphor for snakes on a plane. Aren't you glad? Anyway,
We got a question in the back.
thank God. Poor Todd sitting going, oh God, I was teamed up with this guy? Oh no.
Chris, assuming you were working under the comic code when you first started,
That's a big assumption.
what was it like when that was finally lifted, and were you able to, was it able to allow you to be more creative after that? Considerably more creative, I should say.
Oh yes, let's flash full frontal nudity. That makes every book better.
Yeah, actually, somebody was on another panel was talking about how, to a certain degree, those restrictions could be beneficial to the story because it forces you to make choices.
Frank Miller and I had a sort of unspoken game that we would play, which was, what can you do and how can you do it? And yank the card up. You know, if you read Daredevil or you read the X-Men, there is nothing really there, as far as I'm concerned, that we did then that you can't do now, or that you do now that we couldn't do then. The only story that perhaps the only story I wrote that was intentionally never meant to be a code book was God Loves Man Kills. And that was because I was going full bore into a story about religious intolerance and racism, and I wasn't going to, as much as possible, pull any punches. Doesn't mean it was going to be gross or profane, but I didn't want to deal with any ethical quibbles on the part of the code as to what was appropriate or inappropriate. The whole point, the value for me of the code was it required us to present scenes in a way that would be acceptable for our youngest readers, kids 6, 8, 10, 12, 23, 47, and equally intriguing and readable for readers 10 years older and 10 years beyond that, because they were then in a position in life where ideally if I had written the story well, if the artist had drawn the story well, you could look at it and say, holy cow, ooh, or this is, wow, I didn't see that coming. Why? I wasn't old enough. I mean, why? It's the difference between, we wish to demonstrate that these characters are in a relationship. Let's show them in bed together. Okay, we have two characters in bed together. As opposed to the way Walter and I did it in an issue where in the middle of the night, Madeline screams. Next panel, the door bursts open, Cyclops runs into the room. What's wrong? They have a conversation. We move on. But if you look at it, you realize, hang on. Oh, so she's wearing the top half of the PJs, He's wearing the bottom half. Well, that makes perfect sense. What else are you going to do if your girlfriend's staying over and she needs something to wear? You give her the top half of your PJs. Wait a minute, if they're sharing PJs, well, he's in another room. He must have been doing what? Because that's a king-size bed. And she's on the right side, and the left side, someone's been on that pillow. So, all the evidence is there to tell you quite bluntly, yes, Scott and Madeline were having a relationship. They were sleeping together, among other things. But if you don't notice that, you don't know it. And you don't need to know it. It's just there. And I don't know, I like discovering things. I don't like everything being thrown at me with big, fat letters saying, look, these characters are in a relationship, whatever that means. It's like, okay, so why am I bothering to read this? You know, I mean, it was just more fun to be subtle. It's not as avant-garde today to be subtle. But then it seemed like it made it more of an adventure, more of a discovery, it made for more appreciation on the part of the audience because you could rediscover the book at different times of your life when you read it because you're seeing different things in it that you didn't see before. And it was, quite frankly, fun. I mean, it's like watching an old movie, and instead of having the scenes played out for you in boring detail, it threw you a moment and allowed you to think about it and realize and then discover and then go on from there. That to me has always been the most fun of creating stories and working with the right kind of artist to create a visual presentation that complemented it.
Thank you.
Good answer.
Yeah,
What's your favorite X-Men?
what's yours?
Cyclops?
Okay. I'm not being facetious. How do you choose? I've known these guys for the better part of a half century. And by better part, I mean almost. It's like I created 2/3 of them. How do you choose who's your favorite kid? Well, that's easy. But it's the neat thing about Cyclops is he is such a screw-up. I mean, he can't tie his shoes without, bringing the world to an end. But he keeps trying. He really wants, he so needs everything to fit. Because every time he tried from his very earliest as a child to make the world better, i.e., oh God, Mom and Dad threw me out of the plane because it's burning because we're being attacked by space aliens who are about to kidnap them and kill Mom in another galaxy, and my dad's going to turn into a pirate. Most people would think this is cool, but here's Cyclops. But I've got to save my kid brother. You mean the kid brother we know about, or the one that's going to be in hibernation for 25 years until we invent him suddenly when you're not looking? Anyway. And they fall from a great height, their parachute catches fire, and poor Scott lands on his head. And there are consequences. And Alex gets adopted and he doesn't. And so he's raised alone in an orphanage, not realizing, oh wait, this is a different timeline, but in this timeline, his best friend in the orphanage is really Mr. Sinister. Yes, Mr. Sinister was really a 10-year-old in disguise, which is why he looks as stupid as he does. Because he's a supervillain invented by a 10-year-old with a 10-year-old's vision of what a superhero villain should look like. But But of course, no one ever asked me. They just invented him as an 18th century mad scientist. See, this is the joy of comics, a collaborative medium. We just want to kill everybody. You wonder where supervillains come from? Art writers looking at their editors. But anyway, the Cyclops I find incredibly cool because he's so incredibly normal and disturbingly like me. But he's much better looking. Dang it.
Question right there.
Yeah, so actually this is a question for both Todd and Chris, but we're talking about Dave Cockrum, but when he created a lot of the characters and their designs have been fairly timeless. Visually, what are your favorite characters? And then post Dave Cockrum, what are your favorite characters since then?
I can definitely say Nightcrawler has been one of my favorites. And that's why I was such a thrill to get to draw the book. But Colossus was one that really I appreciated. Just a big metal guy, a shining metal guy was just really cool. And that he was an artist as well. So I think for me it wasn't just the visual, but also the character behind it. Nightcrawler was a guy that looks like a demon but is on the side of the angel sort of kind of guy. That contrast of what people perceive and who he really is, that was appealing. Colossus being an artist who ends up, I remember in the Mutant Massacre, when he kills Riptide, it was like, oh my gosh, this is such a watershed moment for Colossus. And so characters like that, Kitty Pryde, she is currently my all-time favorite X-Man. But because she's a strong, strong in character, not super strong, but she's a gal that doesn't take guff. She'll give back to you. You give something to her, she'll give it right back at you. She's a genius. So there are different characters I like for different reasons. But so it's not just the visual, but it is fun to get to draw visual characters that have that cool design or that
What
spark.
Kitty Pryde costume do you like? That's
the 80s blue costume, the Excalibur costume, because that's what I grew up on. So you always seem to like what you first entered into reading comic books from my mind. So, yeah. So.
Well, see, the real problem with talking about that character is, see, what really pissed me off, what really pissed me off was I hadn't been gone that long from Excalibur. Alan hadn't been gone that long from Excalibur. And then Lauren comes in. Anyway. And the next thing I know, Kitty's snogging Pete Wisdom. I said, hang on. She's not yet 16. Even in England, this is not appropriate. Oh no, she's older. Older? How much older? Oh, 7 or 8 years. So she's in her mid-20s? Yes. So Spider-Man is now 30? Okay. See, this is, so Chris being the emotional age of a newt got his hands back on the book. And the first thing he did was, hey, I've been gone from Marvel for 5 years. Kitty is no longer old enough to snog Pete Wisdom. She's now 16 again. Do you know how much flack we got? I mean, readers wrote it and said, wait, if she's 16, what does that do to the relationship with Pete Wisdom? Hopefully, running over with a truck. You can't do that, this isn't Top Gear. Oh, nobody got that joke at all. Anyway, so she's now off with what's his face?
Star-Lord, Peter Quill. The third Peter she's dated.
This.
Or Pete, should I say?
Oh God.
You're saying Kitty likes Peters.
And Peter Quill wouldn't have any objection to 16. I don't care. I mean, I'm from outer space, dude. We don't you know, whatever.
Well, by this time, Kitty has to be in her early 20s, I would say. 20, 21, 22, would we say?
Why?
Just the passage of time. I would put her, she certainly can't be 16.
Do you think she should be 16 forever?
I think, see, this is the difference. I mean, I'm from Stan's side of the street. You got to ask yourself very seriously where you want to go with this. If you're going to make her in her 20s, then you're automatically disenfranchising the audience behind you. The teenagers who are coming, the new guy, the next generation. You are saying her stories now are relating to 20 and 30 somethings. And then you've got to ask the fundamental point, which is what we tried to address with Cyclops and Madeline, which is, okay, you're a grown-up now. Look around, all you guys out here, look around the room. Imagine yourselves in skin-tight costumes, going out and saving the world. Over and above trying to find and sustain a day job. And I'm not being all that facetious. The reason the X-Men, I mean, they live in a magnificent, super scientific, huge, whoa, are we cool or not house that's 38 miles from New York City. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, Homeland Security would be on them like, I mean, you wouldn't be able to like get through the lines of cops around that place. Why? I'm sorry, you're gonna let superheroes live 30 miles from the Big Apple after 9/11 and not be concerned, especially the at least 8 or 9 times mutants have led revolts against the United States, fought the Avengers back and forth. Give me a break. You can fill in whatever line you like. So, I mean, there's a reason everyone was supposed to have a secret identity, because throwing this into reality creates way too much trouble. But it wasn't my call. The thing, though, is that you start aging people, and, you know, what we did with Cyclops was, okay, he's older. He's met Madeline. They have a child. He's going to do what a grown man should do. Be responsible for his family and his position in the world and go live a normal life. He's done his term in Iraq. He's now in the reserves. He's going off and getting a job. He's not a lifer. He's gonna raise his kids and be available for emergencies, like any member of the reserves would be. But he's not there every day. That's the job of Aurora and Colossus and Nightcrawler, or whoever comes next. That was the goal. That was the intent. And yes, we would age everybody like a little bit, but it would be in a specific, special moment. Cyclops leaving is a moment. Then, of course, Jean came back from the dead. Madeline turned evil. Nate, I don't know what the hell happened to Nate. Except in X-Men Forever, where he lived happily ever after, but that's fantasy anyway. And he came back. And they all came back. And I'm sorry, it's just, there's a point, for me, the point of divergence between Marvel and DC is that Bruce Wayne is rich enough to not have to worry about doing any of this stuff. Clark works for a great metropolitan newspaper where he can cover the world and disappear. And if he needs to get some spare money, he crushes a piece of coal into diamond. You know, Green Arrow is a millionaire. Green Lantern has access to like interstellar technology. John Jones is a Martian, who cares? Wonder Woman is a demi-goddess from a fictional island somewhere. A paradise. Island paradise, paradise island, go figure. If you run through the panoply of DC characters, they're all independently wealthy or self-supporting. Spider-Man was a lower middle class kid from Queens. The FF were always running out of money. Tony Stark was the token billionaire, but he blew it all trying to keep the Avengers running. Captain America, I guess, could live on his on his 50 years of back pay. Marvel characters worked for a living. Marvel characters were grounded in something akin to the real world. That, to me, as a reader, was what made it cool. By making it easy for them. I mean, yeah, the X-Men had a Rolls Royce, but they only had one. You know, the X-Men had the Blackbird, because Charlie had a relationship with Kelly Johnson back in the day, and Kelly built it for him as a favor. But we never broke it. We broke everything else 4 or 5 times, but we never broke the Blackbird because they only had one. And that, to me, was how it should be. There should be something that, it should be a reflection of real life. Marvel has always prided itself on being a reflection of real life. And that doesn't mean putting the Avengers on an island off the coast of San Francisco, because what, are they like illegal aliens? Is that what we want to do, is put the Avengers out there, or the mutants out there, or whomever? You know, the fun was that it was almost real, and close enough that you could get confused. I mean, for me, one of the primal moments of the first Galactus story is Galactus is putting together his machine on the Baxter building, and Stan and Jack cuts away to a cop watching, with a cop and a news cameraman watching. And one guy asks the other, you think this is it? Is this the end of the world? I don't know, man. I mean, can't the superheroes do anything? Can't the FF do anything? I don't know, man. I'm just a cop. You know, I'm thinking, okay, that's cool. That's kind of real world. I mean, fantasy real world, Marvel real world, but what are you going to do? There's a giant 50-foot tall alien with all sorts of stuff about to eat the world. Nothing we can do. We're waiting for the FF to save our lives. But they're worried, they're scared, and they're talking about it. That was something you saw in Marvel you didn't see anywhere else. And it saddens me as a writer and as a reader that we don't see as much of that anymore. Because I think the books are missing something, and I think the readers are missing something. Points of contact, points of relationship, points that make it real for the readers. And I'm sorry, I'm selfish. If I'm writing this book, I want everybody who reads it to come back next issue, and I want them to bring their friends. And I want them to bring their friends the issue after. I want to end the year with more readers than I started at the beginning of the year. And I want to find a way to tell stories that excite the artist, so he'll draw stuff that's never been seen before. And I'm sorry, the last 2 issues of Nightcrawler do that for me. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, oh, Todd, you are just cool. I mean, yeah, I had the idea to suggest this, but you pulled it off. And that, you know, I hope carries through to the readers. They think, this is really cool. you know, these werewolves are creepy. What are we gonna do with them? Oh, we're gonna run them over with trucks, neatly. But that's what comics should be, fun. Dramatic, exciting, scary, silly, but fun. You read them because you can't believe people can get away with this, especially in skin-tight costumes. And you want to see what happens next. And if you don't have that feeling, if you don't have that excitement, if you don't have that whoop-de-doo, then, you know, we're wasting your time. And that's unforgivable. We must never do that.
I think that's a great question to end on, because we're about wrapping up. Thank you so much for being here and talking about all these great stories and stuff. I'm really stoked. I'm actually going to go look up Dave Cockrum. He had designs for Giant Size that weren't used, and I was thinking about them when you were talking about him. I remember them being so cool, and I barely remember what they looked like. Like Nightcrawler, where it's like a bat and stuff.
other books.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that's right. That's probably when I heard about it, when they were talking about X-Men Forever, maybe. Is that what they used it? Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. And thanks again to Chris and Todd.
Almost like too many things to say.